Hi, I'm Scott Jameson. Welcome to a very special edition of Killer Penguin Productions Presents. You guys that know me as a producer, wherever you might be watching this, you gotta know me from my background in the wrestling business. You gotta know me from Trailer Trash TV, my miscellaneous music shows in the past. This is something that's probably one of the most special productions I have done and been involved with. I'm a huge fan and have a huge appreciation for not only the business of wrestling, but public access television in general. And what we're doing here today, it's a little thing that's going to be known as NWF The Untold Story. My guests with me today are Charlie Luxury Lane and Sean Crusher Crossen, two of the co-founders of the original NWF. It was a local wrestling promotion. Wherever you're watching this, it was a local promotion in the suburbs of Minneapolis and St. Paul. And I'm going to be kind of going back and forth not only on the wrestling aspect of it, but the big deal that it was for public access television at the time. And with all the things that are going through legislation right now with public access, that's the main reason I wanted to do this the way I did it. So Sean, Charlie, I want to thank you first for making the trip. We're taping this Minneapolis, St. Paul suburbs. I mean, Charlie, you came up from upwards northern Minnesota. Sean, you came over from Wisconsin. You know, it's a hell of a trip, let alone in 100-degree heat as we're speaking.
Yeah, that's about right.
So, but, you know, having read the book and the history of this kids wrestling promotion, for lack of a better term, and the production that it was, it's just amazing what you guys did in those years. You know, the promotion itself was, I want to say it was 84 to about 87. Right in those.
That was the basic years, and then it kind of triggered. It still went on until about 89, but the hardcore years were 84 through 87.
Mm-hmm. And aside from wanting to get involved in TV and doing an access production, what made you guys decide to come up with a kids pro wrestling league?
Well, that's a question that Sean and I still debate to this day. But
whose idea was it?
He did it. I think I did it. But bottom line, we came together. And
20 years later, you always want to be the one.
Yeah, exactly. But no, we used to. Gosh, you know, Sean told me about this course we could take at the cable station, and of course I was big into watching, you know, AWA wrestling back then, and so we took this course, and Sean and I used to go down in either my basement or his basement, and we had He-Man. We made a little, you know, professional wrestling ring, and we would move them, stop them, move them, stop them, and then I guess the next phase was to
do an actual show. And I guess what happened was, you know, Charlie was a fan of wrestling in the beginning. I wasn't. He was. But the cable salesman came to my house. That was when they had cable salespeople selling cable. And they had a big, huge binder, and they would go over all the channels, and in there was public access.
We had the same thing.
Yeah, and when they talked about public access, and it was a real quick little thing. He's like, when we have public access, you can go and make your own TV shows, use the equipment. And he went to flip the page, and I'm like, wait a minute. And I put my hand, and I said, tell me about this public access. I said, I'm 12 years, or what was I, 13 at the time. 13 years old, can I do this? And he's like, yeah, anybody can do it. It's for everybody. And I just kept going back and forth to that access. Spent an extra hour at the house with the cable salesman guy on this, and I went down the next week and signed up for the classes and learned how to do TV shows. And then that's when Charlie and I came together to think, well, we're going to make this wrestling show. You know, the combination of cable television, public access, and being wrestling fans as kids. That's how it came together.
And now, aside from, we're going to see later on in the documentary, you guys eventually started taping this stuff in your folks' garage at the time, and we'll get into the red tape involving that too. But you guys essentially, as they'll see in the video, you guys essentially used a stage platform, which is some stand-ups, and to my appearance, it looked like clothesline.
Well, yeah, what we did is we went from my basement with mattresses.
That's right. It started with the mattresses.
Started with the mattresses.
That's right.
Then we decided we're going to upscale, so we went into the studio of Group W in Anoka, and they had a stage, a rectangle stage, and that was our ring. But that wasn't enough. I wanted it to look like a ring, so we got these posts that we put on with yellow rope from Menards, with black bungee straps, and that made the ring, which looked like a ring anyway. And then we went to the garage.
Okay, and I'm looking at all the guys that were involved over the years, you know, as performers, announcers. How did most of them honestly come to you, or did you end up having to call a whole crew? Or
You mean the
combination
kids
of
that were
both?
on the show?
Kids that were either on the show or involved with the show, either one.
Well, in the beginning, that was his job.
Yeah, I kind of did a lot of recruiting just
Okay.
from local. You know, we had a bunch of kids in the neighborhood. We hung out and did a lot of recruiting in the neighborhood, and then, you know, started to go to school and recruit kids, and one, of course, when a lot of them seen it on cable, then all of a sudden the recruiting became real easy.
Oh, of course.
You know, because everybody wanted to be on cable and
Yep.
TV. That to us was like being in a theater. I mean, that
Oh,
was
I
big
know.
time to us.
I mean, this was 1980. Cable TV in the 80s was huge because there was no satellite. Either you had cable or you had 3 channels.
Yep.
And nobody wanted the 3 channels. So cable was really picking up. Everybody was getting it, and everybody was watching. You didn't have favorite channel stuff. You had the channel surf, and with 40 channels on the system, somebody coming across our show was pretty good odds.
Yep. And there's nothing like the rush. I've said this time and again. You guys gotta. I would hope feel the same way. There's nothing like the rush of seeing that very first program on the air.
Oh yeah.
You know, you're flipping through, and actually all the work you did on that first program alone. Once you finally actually see it, and then the phone starts ringing with the friends calling, "Hey, turn to this, turn to this."
Yep.
You know. But looking at, I'm going to touch on the wrestling tangent for a minute. The wannabe wrestlers tangent for a minute, because a lot of stuff happening in the business that is wrestling today, we have a lot of what they call backyard promotions. You guys were more of an emulation, you know, imitating, you know, the big time stars at the time and just having fun with it. You know, you guys didn't have any formal training, correct?
No, not in the
And
beginning.
you guys were playing. Did anybody, aside from the title matches that you discuss in the film, you know, where you were wrestling for real, as you put it, where guys would get hurt or whatever, were there a lot of injuries? Did anybody really get hurt when you guys were doing the show, per se?
I mean, sprained ankles or nothing major.
I don't know if
I
we had a
recall.
sprained ankle.
I think I
Bumps
did
and
one time.
Yeah, you hit
And
your
that
leg.
cable.
Hit your leg.
Okay.
When we were in the cable station, I
Yeah.
came down on my ankle pretty
mean-
hard, but
Bumps and bruises. you
Oh,
know.
yeah.
I broke my finger.
Kids, that, you know,
Broke-
12, 13, 14-year-old kids will get,
Yeah.
you know, just
Yeah.
well, you got to
playing
remember
anyway.
when you're a kid too, you can take a lot of punishment,
Right.
and not get hurt because you're so flexible and agile, and you get thrown around. And
Yep.
But-
you know, today our bodies don't take it the way they used
No,
to.
they don't heal as quickly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But as kids, though, I just remember wanting to do it as much as the real time as it
Right.
was. So we studied wrestling, you know, thoroughly, and we worked on doing those moves.
The moves and the holds
You
are
know,
the key words here.
Yeah, and so you know, we trained ourselves to do it as good as we could, and we picked up things along the way from people like Eddie Sharkey. Eddie was probably the most helpful for us with our wrestling, because I would go down to his training. Once I met Eddie Sharkey, I went down to his training camp. He would let us hang out, and he would let us practice, and he would come out and say, well, you know, you want to do it this way, or you want to do it that way. So we never got any training, but we got a lot of tips and techniques from
See,
Eddie.
he had a lot of respect for what you were doing, and you know, myself having worked for Eddie Sharkey in the past, you know, as a camera person, I saw that in him. You know, he was a tough trainer. If you ever been to his camp and seen how he used to train the guys, oh, he was hard nosed. But at the same time, if he appreciated and respected what you were doing, he'll take you over in the corner and give you the time of day.
Yeah.
And I still respect Eddie for that. You know, and getting back to this backyard wrestling, I'm gonna go on a limb and say I got absolutely no respect for the guys in the backyard promotions.
Well, they're getting hurt.
It's
they're-
garbage wrestling.
Yeah, it is.
It's
You know?
it's a whole different thing, and it can be somewhat entertaining for people that are into that, but it's not professional wrestling. It's
Right.
not the way it's meant to be done.
Right.
And a lot of kids get the wrong impression, which is why I wrote the book, because I want kids to understand that, you know, if you're going to do professional wrestling, it's not about jumping off a roof and landing on a plywood table on fire. You know,
Yeah.
them things make headline news only because somebody potentially got hurt.
Yep.
And if you really love professional wrestling and have it in you, you wouldn't be doing that stuff.
So that's, you know, I mean, that's my take, you know, making the comparison, you know, because I know ever since not only the book but the video have been released, the documentary on the video. There's so many comparisons made between you guys then and the backyard promotions now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they're saying we've heard pioneers of backyard wrestling. Well, we never were pioneers of backyard wrestling.
No.
What we did is we tried to, like Sean said earlier, like the pros do. We studied the moves. We didn't want to hurt each other.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't try to do moves to sell on TV of people getting hurt like you see today.
Mm-hmm.
So, we were kids just trying to be pro wrestlers, basically, not backyard.
Yeah, the term didn't even exist. It didn't.
I mean, there are guys in the business that I was acquainted with that are going to remain nameless, but they were born with silver spoons, and mom and dad helped them with the purchase of a ring. It's like, okay, so you got $5,000 to drop into a ring. Big deal. That doesn't mean nothing. If you don't know how to use it, what's the sense of buying a ring if you're not essentially going to ultimately be using it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If you're doing this backyard crap.
Yeah.
And that's why the last promotion that I was acquainted with, MPW, they had guys that used to be backyard performers. I won't even say wrestlers in this case. But the trainer at the time said, forget everything you learned. He put them through 8 months of training, harder than the rest of the guys that were currently going through camp.
Sure.
And they ended up with a group of reformed yarders in the promotion. They learned how to work on the mat. They learned how to, actually exchange holds where they didn't know what holds were before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But that's why, I got that much more respect for you guys over any of the backyard promotions that are still running. So, any, God forbid, yarders that might be watching this, check out some of the older videos from these guys. Yeah, there are a bunch of kids that are playing around at the time, but the respect that they had for the business at that young age speaks volumes compared to what you guys are doing now. That's a shoot. So with that being said, we touched briefly about the first show, about it making it on the air. From the actual planning, when you got the crew together and you had all your characters and your announcers together, how long did it take from the initial planning to the airing of that first show, in your estimation?
Well, I think we spent a good 3 hours editing. It was our first time.
Yeah.
But we had to edit it together. But in the beginning, we weren't real good at that. I mean, and the setting wasn't the greatest. We had our 4 mattresses. But we just kind of put it together. And it was more or less, we kind of shot it the way we wanted it aired. We did our interviews. We did the matches in the order they were going to be placed. So the editing was pretty simple. And it was just us in the beginning with our fantasies of what we wanted it to be.
Yeah.
Now, later on, when we got into the studio, after Charlie left, I got real sophisticated with multiple camera shots, and we would put microphones under the ring to get the sound effects. We would do, we had a mic geared up so it would drop down
mic,
to do the introductions. We got into everything, and we had a lot of things like that set up, and the angles of the cameras. And I got really pretty sophisticated into that. And then when we did the armory shows, the live events, I took it one step further with having people film with 3 different cameras and then having to edit it together.
You did the hard edit on 3 seconds. Oh, God.
And it was a nightmare. Now, that took about a week to do.
I remember those days, too. But, oh, gosh. Even with the show within a show, the actual wrestling show itself, the match setups and the scenarios and storylines. Now, who did the booking for that? Was that entirely you, Sean, or Charlie? Did you help out with the booking end of things?
Well, I had moved away.
You had moved away for a while.
And then Sean, I guess I left. I was there for about a year, and then Sean, kept going with the show and took it to the next level. I always say that, and
But in the beginning, it was us too that decided the matches, how they were going to go.
Yeah, we worked together as a team on it.
Right.
And of course, when I wanted to be the world champion,
that was a problem.
I had to listen to the elder in the situation.
I was a couple years older, and I could.
No, Sean always had a good way of convincing me not to be the world.
And that's
champion.
a good promoter.
So Sean was the promoter.
Sean was a promoter, but he said to me, you can be the PWA champion.
And that was before the PWA even existed.
Yeah.
So not to get confused, but that is.
Yeah. So. Yeah.
So Charlie, you were basically a case of the first wrestling ego in this promotion, weren't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
The guy that wouldn't lay down, the
Yeah.
guy that wouldn't, the guy that wouldn't put the other one over.
Yeah.
Oh,
But he was
God.
tag team champion and
Yeah.
PWA
No, we worked
champion.
good
I didn't get the
together.
tag
I
team
know.
right away.
No. And I won some battle royals, and
I think you won every battle royal you were
yeah,
in.
and you know, you won't ever see it on film, but I did beat you on it.
We don't have that one on tape.
How
Somehow
convenient.
that was lost.
Got lost.
Yeah, it's amazing how promoters can lose the footage they don't want you to see.
Yeah.
Shoot. And then, once, you got your stuff on, God, at that time it would have been the just turned ABC affiliate Channel 5 in Minneapolis, St. Paul area. And you got your exposure from them, and you had some exposures in the local papers.
Yeah, the Star Tribune.
Star Trib.
Twin City Reader used to be a
Twin
paper
City
here.
yeah.
There was the first one we did. And Channel 5, the highlight in the sports department that night, I'll never forget it. And that was huge exposure. I mean,
Oh, yeah, for
we got a lot of, when we went to school, kids, they knew.
Uh-huh.
And we got a lot of response from kids just from being on the show. But when that news segment was done,
Yep.
not only were we getting much more response from the kids, but teachers and everybody. I mean, Channel 5 News was pretty popular back in the 80s, and 10, I think it was on the 6 and the 10 o'clock news.
Yep.
So
I remember.
double exposure, and that was big. That was big time, and we felt big time.
See, and shortly after that, it seemed that you were able to get into other markets, other states, other cities, Minnesota. How tough was that compared to now, we have residency requirements in some stations and whatnot, but at the time you could just plain send tapes out to other...
Yeah, there was no residency requirement. Back in the 80s, the way it worked was you just called up the cable company that you wanted to be in and requested a time slot.
Oh.
And that was that simple. It was a matter of a phone call. So what I did is I got on the phone and started dialing up cable companies all over the country. I would pick big cities, New York, LA, Dallas, Denver, and I got my time slots all set up. And it took me a couple hours to do this in my living room with the phone, and not even asking my parents if it was
I was
okay.
going to say, yeah, then your parents got the
And
bill.
remember, 1985, it was AT&T only, so you were forced at the rate. I just set up all my time slots. I had about 20 cities lined up, and they're all expecting tapes, and about a month later, the phone bill came. I didn't make any more calls outside the state after that.
But yet, doing the legwork hasn't changed. I mean, even now, if producers want to get into other systems, now you got the internet, you can just email people. But yeah, the legwork doesn't change. You still have to run your dubs. Granted, not everything is on tape anymore. You can still send tapes out. But yeah, the legwork in getting a show, its exposure, if you want it to be seen in other areas, there's still that background work that is involved for any new producers out there.
And I just did that because I did it in the Twin Cities. It was easy in the cities because it was local numbers, and I set up my time slots all around the Twin Cities.
Yep.
And when I had that established and I seen it working, I realized we could do this nationally.
Yep.
And that's when I went and called all those companies. And even though I made a huge phone bill, it was a one-time thing. Once that was done, that was it.
Yep.
And it was now set up every week, and it was just a matter of sending tapes out. And I had a mailing system that would go. I'd use library rate, and I would send my tapes to one system with prepaid postage to go to the next, and they all knew where to go with it. So
nice.
they would forward it when they were done, and then they would forward it, and then it would come back to me.
Okay.
And that worked good, but I did lose a few tapes in the
I
process.
suppose.
It's going to happen. So we
Yeah.
got a few shows that were missing in our history of the NWF.
Yep.
But
Now, through all this, the film that we've been watching talks about some of the high points and obviously some of the low points, the backstabs, the turncoats, which we won't get into because the film explains it plenty. But what, in your guys' personally, was your favorite high point of the NWF?
I guess my favorite high point was actually making it a reality. Actually, like you had said earlier, your first show. Even though we were on bed mattresses, I mean, that was amazing for us to be on. You're talking about a 11-year-old, a 13-year-old, and other kids that didn't have adult influences, didn't have adults running cameras and producing or editing. That was done strictly by kids. So looking back at that accomplishment that, you know, we did together in the very beginning was a highlight, a major highlight for me. It's something that that has carried through to my life to this day, as far as being kind of an entrepreneur, a business person. You know, that trait started young, and it was a dream that Sean and I both had, and you know, where there's a will, there's a way, and we made it happen. You know, and there was a lot of obstacles in the way, but
absolutely.
yeah. So that was my highlight, I guess.
Sean, what about you?
My highlight, you know, a little different for Charlie because, you know, he had to move away. But I know what he's saying, and that accomplishment. And for me, the biggest highlight for me, and I wish he could have been a part of this, was when we did our first live event at the Anoka Armory.
Oh.
I mean, because this was my dream. And Charlie, we'd go to the AWA matches, and I'd look up at that ring, and he and I both, and say, you know, we got to be in that ring.
We want to be
in there. I want to be in that ring with all these people. And when we were able to make that happen and have 350 people come and see us, you know, some were friends and family, but we didn't have that many friends and family. There were a lot of fans there. And, you know, when I did my match and I was all done and I come out and all the kids wanted autographs, that's when it hit me. That's when it really hit me that we were making a dent with these kids because, you know, gosh, you know, when you have a little kid that wants your autograph, it just...
Did you ever think you'd be a role model at 14?
Yeah,
yeah. I mean, really, you know,
never,
and sold out crowd and people paying money to actually come watch this
when I
wrestling.
saw and read about that, that was amazing. You guys were the first group to sell out the Anoka Armory. Hasn't been touched since.
Isn't that something?
To this day, has not been touched since.
Yeah, it was a great place, and parking was always a problem in downtown Anoka.
That's any armory. But yeah, downtown Anoka in general, yes.
We did the Brooklyn Park Armory, too.
Yep.
And but that one wasn't quite as good. We didn't have the foothold in the area. We were on the cable system, but yeah, that first armory event, and when it worked, and we had that would be the high point.
Just something that big a scale, just the amount of work you guys did from creating tickets and flyers and all the promotion you guys were doing for it at the time. Just that background work alone, even getting 30, 40, 50 people in would have been sensational.
Yeah.
But that was just astronomically insane. Yeah. That you guys sold it out.
I still baffled. You know, when I watched and we've got that on DVD. It's released on DVD and available all over. And when you watch that first event and see all those people there, it's nuts. You know, I still can't believe it.
Because I've been to regular local promotion events that have had maybe a third of that crowd most of the time. So
well, that was one of the things Eddie knew about us. Was that we were doing sellouts at the Armory, and he knew this, and that's one of the reasons we did a card together a few months later. But
I mean, I don't know. I'm looking on the table now. As long as we're talking about accolades, since the release of the documentary that we've been seeing over the course of this interview, you know, the backstory behind the NWF, the untold story, if you will, you guys have gotten some serious, not only national recognition, but worldwide recognition. Sean, Charlie, why don't you explain some of these awards that we're looking at right here?
Well, what we have is, I'll let Charlie explain these ones in the front, but like we got the Visionary Film and Video Awards. It's an award of excellence. That's their best honor that we can get from that one. The Videographer Award of Distinction, this is their second highest honor. Sometimes you don't always get the best, but we'll take whatever they can give us.
You guys were against some heavy hitters.
Yeah,
in
this
terms
is
of nominees.
Yeah, regular studios.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
I mean, these are just some of the awards and some of the things Sean and I have been involved in is like the New York International Film and Video Festival, where we won Best Sports Documentary. You know, and there's, I mean, hundreds of people, you know, that submit their film, and we were actually out there, and it was a great experience. And then we were invited to the Los Angeles International Film and Video, and we won the Screencraft Award, which is a top honors for documentaries, and we're very proud of that fact. And we've been in magazines. We've been in the
Independent Film Quarterly.
Yep. Cannes Film Festival out in Europe. We were in that, and So it's really taken off.
And this one in the middle, this is the Telly Award. We
Yeah.
actually got 3 awards from them. This is just one of them. And that one was the Silver Award. That's their top honor, and that was for sports documentary. We've gotten some awards in children's programming because obviously it's the subject matter is geared with kids, and we've gotten some awards there and endorsements. Like we got an endorsement from the Dove. But to be honest with you, we're endorsed by the Dove Foundation for both the book and the documentary, and
That's cool.
I think we're the only professional wrestling related product that is endorsed by that company because they're family friendly media.
Yep.
And I don't think the WWE could get an endorsement from
Not a
them on
prayer.
anything that they're doing right now these
No.
days.
Even the 80s would have been a stretch for them, but it's to be commended. All the work you guys have done, seriously, over the last 20 years total.
Well, we're real proud of the awards
You know,
we've
yes.
gotten, because it means a lot to us. I always knew this was a good story, and the awards kind of help showcase that. And I tell you, though, it's a lot of work putting this documentary together.
Oh, God.
I had 18 hours of interviewing footage I had to get through.
Oh, I bet. I don't even want to look. I don't even want to know about the raw footage you have stashed from the documentary that you didn't use.
Yeah,
You know,
it was a lot of work.
but if you want to know more about not only the documentary or the book, but any of the history behind the NWF, go to nwfwrestling.net. You can find out more about these awards. They are legitimate. I'm seeing them firsthand. I mean, these guys are the real deal, honest to God, and they're to be commended for every ounce of sweat that they've dropped. It's a lot of hard work, let alone running a wrestling promotion as a kid. I wouldn't wish it on anybody. But not only running a wrestling promotion, but launching a cable show, staffing a cable show entirely with younger kids, and making it work. You guys are to be commended all the way around for everything that you've done.
Well, thank you.
We appreciate it. And I
guys-
tell you what, we have a great opportunity working with Warner Brothers Entertainment.
Yeah, I was
going to
ask you about that.
Yeah.
What are you guys doing now, 20 years later, since the release of the film and the book? What do you guys, if you want to share?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, Sean and I, when we were in the Los Angeles Film Festival, we had a meeting with the Walper Group, Sam Alexander, and
They're a division of Warner Brothers.
yeah, a division of Warner Brothers, and a great experience. We were actually on the Warner Brothers set area, and
Lot.
and we seen, I should have said lot, but different sets.
Yeah.
We walked by, toured it, and had a good meeting with them, and they've actually come up with the treatment, and they're reviewing that treatment, and the next step would be for them to get the writer involved, and there could be a movie, because when you think about it, their approach on this is more like a Sandlot movie.
Correct.
A family-orientated movie. Wrestling's part of it, but it's also the Rat Pack neighborhood too. So Sean and I are both just thrilled, and we hope something like that can happen. But Hollywood, it takes time, it moves slow.
course.
Just
Oh,
like
yeah.
the work he did on the documentary and book. It took a lot of time to get there. So we're keeping our fingers crossed.
It was a neat experience because when we were out in LA, we were invited out they invited us to the Warner Brothers lot. And I know I'm used to the studios, and this is a huge thing with several studios, buildings. It was overwhelming. It was like a city within a city, and just to be in there. And we pulled into our parking stall, and then Sam, what was his name?
George Clooney.
George Clooney's parking stall's right next there.
Oh, geez.
So who knew? I don't even know who we were all bumping into there. That we
We've
walked
seen a
by.
lot of the ER cast. They have like a little restaurant
that's
and coffee place, and you see the ER crew come in. And
They were filming ER.
yeah, so it was a good experience for some small town guys,
And not only that, but when we went out to New York, we met with Sheila Nevins with HBO Documentaries. They're reviewing the documentary now. They still have it, and I don't know where that's going to go with HBO because HBO, their budget for acquiring independently produced stuff is hardly any more than what it used to be. Now they do so much original programming, and she told us this. So they have very little money they can spend on acquiring programs these days, but they're interested enough to look at it.
Yeah.
And so they've been reviewing it since last November, but these things can take a long time.
Yeah.
But
You got all the suits behind the tables, and they'll pass it to each other, and they'll pass it to the subdivisions that'll look over it, and
Takes time.
Of course it does.
Well, we've been picked up by Netflix, and you can order in
Excellent.
about 30 days to 60 days. Sean said you can actually order the video through Netflix. We're working
Actually,
with.
I think it's right now.
It is.
Wow.
So
it didn't
in
take long.
video stores, we're in video matinee.
FYE stores, and there's only one FYE store here in the state or in this area, and that's down in the mall, but
Yeah.
south.
But you can go buy it, rent it, and we're in 46 states.
Our website's the best place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get the best deals
That's the
there.
quickest place too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we've come to the end of the documentary now, and just for those of you that have been watching this whole time, it's simply an amazing story from start to finish. The good, the bad, the ups, the downs, putting the production together, launching the wrestling promotion, as it were. Now, Charlie, Sean, is there any last words you got for anybody that either wants to get involved with Access or, God forbid, do something? I'm not saying getting into wrestling, because I'll discourage people from the get-go. Any endeavor that they may want to pursue?
Well, I think if you're an adult, listen to your kids. Your kids have unique ideas. Let them live those dreams. Don't put a roadblock in front of them, okay? If you're a kid and you want to do something in life, do it. Make it happen. Don't make excuses up. Just work hard and focus, and anything's possible. Look what Sean and I were able to do as youngsters,
Yep.
So.
And I think a lot of that has gotten lost. I mean, depending on where you go, and just about everywhere you go, it seems like there's a lot of kids that know their daycare providers better than they know their parents.
Yep. It's a society we live in,
latchkey
though.
kids.
Yeah.
Where I live, in one of the northern suburbs of Minneapolis, I'll go to a restaurant on the weekend, and the kids will be catching up with the parents for everything they did all week.
Yeah.
And it's kind of sad in a way, but parents, give your kids the time of day, even if it's 5 minutes before or after school. How'd you do today? What'd you do today? Did you have fun? How are you doing in school? That type of thing.
And let me just touch a little bit on public
Yeah.
access, because public access to me means so much even to this day, because if it wasn't for public access, we would have never done what we did, and none of this would be taking place. Public access was the foundation, and one thing I remember, and I was 14 years old when I went into public access and started working, but people like Terry Lovis and Dave Nyberg and these guys that worked there at the Group W studio then, they treated me as if I was their age. I mean, they did not look at us as because we were a kid. They gave us the respect that we needed at the time, and it made us grow. And that's how the access centers work. And so anybody out there that's interested in their own show, don't hesitate. Use it while it's here, because you don't know if it's going to, who knows what'll happen tomorrow.
Yeah, and the facilities themselves, I see possibly going away in the future. The studios possibly. There's always going to be an outlet to show the programming. But yeah, every facet of public access is so important and so valuable. I mean, especially to those that want, or to those that have a message they want to convey, or those that have something that they feel is important enough that they want to share, whether it's informative, whether it's educational, or in your guys, whether it's entertainment. Every person has an audience out there that can be showcased too, and you guys are proof of that.
Yeah, and if I could just touch real quickly,
Sure.
the documentary, I hope everybody enjoyed it. It kind of ends on a sweet note because that's the way it needed to. But if you want to get the whole story, you really need to read
Here
the
comes
book.
gratuitous plug again.
Pro Wrestling Kid Style. You got to read the book, because that goes into the rest of the story, I guess. Because a lot of people
More
that
details.
watch, a lot of people that watch documentary, they say, "Well, what happened though? What really happened?" Because they know that there's a little more to it.
Yeah, and between the two, I honestly saw stuff in one that wasn't in the other, and you guys didn't do a lot of double dipping. It wasn't like a duplicate of the documentary per se in the book. So it opened up more on elaborated more on some of the down points, but it also elaborated on a lot of the high points, on the awards and and all the sweet spots in the, you guys elaborated far more on the Armory shows in the book. And it's testimony to how valuable public access is. So I'm gonna get on my soapbox momentarily. And please, please, please utilize public access. Get a hold of the person that's in charge of your access center, wherever you might be seeing this. Get involved. If you just want to be behind the scenes, pushing buttons like my director Tim McCoy today, or if you want to be in front of the camera, if you just want to be a guest on a show, if you want to be a crew member on a show, get involved with public access wherever way you can. Let's show the feds that we're out there for a reason. So with that being said, I've been your host, Scott Jameson. I got to thank Charlie Lane. I got to thank Sean Crossen, my guests on this very impressive and very important story that I think needed to be told. With that being said, this has been Killer Penguin Productions Presents. We'll see you next time around.
Good. Great job, man.
Thank you.
That was a good interview.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
good. Very good.
Great job.